We are dancing ballet this morning virtually. A South African born in Soweto is dancing ballet in the Czech Republic. His name is Thoriso Magongwa. He's a professional dancer with the National Theatre Ballet Company of, is it Brno?
Brno.
Brno, there you go. Now, this is the first black ballet dancer at the renowned ballet company in the Czech Republic. And if you've ever watched Thoriso perform, and I have to say I've watched Thoriso perform at the Joburg Theatre and the Market Theatre, you'll realize why he's regarded as one of the best dancers ever trained in South Africa. His body is fit, agile, lanky. His gestures delicate and his moves are fluid, as though floating across the stage. Incredible stage presence has Thoriso Magongwa. And because of this, he's become a solo dancer, even a principal dancer in many of the performances of the ballet company that he represents in Europe. So Thoriso is back home visiting, and he joins us now in studio. So that little conversation we're having, is it Swan Lake? Is it Bolshoi? Should it not be the Bolshoi? When you hear that kind of music, what do you feel?
Well, hello. I'm very happy and excited to be here. My world is very complicated. So the music has evolved with emotions and experience, but the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is excitement. But at the point where I am now, it's more memories. The first time being on stage during this production and that production. So I think the music is a trigger of emotions.
Yes. How does it come to be that a South African born in Soweto ends up being one of the principal dancers for a ballet company in the Czech Republic?
I think it's a very simple story. It's a story of hard work. I've always thought of myself as a global citizen. I've always wanted to think of myself as that. And I just followed opportunity. I worked hard and understood that the world was for my taking. I started ballet at a very young age at I.H. Harris Primary School, and I didn't know anything about it. I was like, what is this thing? And in gradually developing and understanding what it was, I saw that it was an international career. And, even my mom and dad didn't know anything about ballet. So I couldn't go to them for references and to ask them, how do we do this? So I had to really go into myself and figure out and use my intelligence. And, with the tools that we had, internet and, just asking, I realized, okay, this is possible.
So your parents didn't nudge you to dance?
Not at all.
It was just an accident, a beautiful accident.
It was an accident. And we don't have a history of anyone doing dancing or that kind of stuff in my whole entire family.
Was it a teacher, a PE teacher?
Not at all.
How did you just stumble upon the class?
So what happened was our headmaster, he started introducing different activities after school at I.H. Harris. And then ballet came about and I was like, what is this? So I just went to find out and I realized, okay, this is interesting. I was quite the academic. I wanted to become an accountant or, following the route of my other family members. But then I saw this thing, and it incorporated a physical aspect, and there was the music, and I've always kind of been an artistic type child. So it kind of just attracted me in those avenues, And then, then I continued with it. And of course, in the beginning, I was not the right type, and etc. So, but I overcame.
Let's talk about your journey performing in Europe, because especially Eastern Europe has an incredible tradition of supporting the classical arts.
Yes.
Right? When you're in Germany, Vienna, the concert halls, they still perform opera, orchestral music, ballet. And so it's almost inevitable that somebody who's a very talented South African dancer would aspire to go and perform there, because there's a different kind of appreciation for the craft.
Absolutely. Where I am now, the Narodny Teatr Brno, our national theatre, we have the opera, we have Chinora, the drama, we have the ballet, and it's a well-oiled machine with different departments, and we are state-funded. So a gazillion of cash is given to us to simply do what we love. So one cannot be in South Africa and be in that kind of environment. Not to say I wouldn't love to be here and do it, but if I have the opportunity to do it at the highest level, where I don't have to beg for funding or beg the public to come and watch me, why would I turn that opportunity down? And what it has also done is exposed me to how big this industry is. Because when I was here, it was just like, if I'm doing ballet, the ballet community is just really focused in that. But, recently I just did a performance of Beethoven, where a role was created on me of a character called Hrujota. Hrujota is an angel of death, because Beethoven was deaf. And he had this whole thing, he was like gravitating towards the darkness in his life. And he was abusive and all of that. So I became this character that kind of like pulls him towards his death. And in that production, we had the full Brno Orchestra on stage with us. We had the full choir with us on stage. So it just allowed us to have all these avenues, but we didn't have to go out there to outsource whatever. It was all in-house. Our costumes are magnificent and they're all made in our building. It's so lovely to just be walking to my changing room and to hear the orchestra rehearsing, and the hat department is busy. So it's this kind of environment that it feeds you, and you want to be as an artist in an environment that is not just into your specific field, but is exposing you to everything else.
It's an ecosystem is what you're describing.
Exactly.
And we do know that of all the artistic genres, it seems as though ballet has really struggled to raise money. It was not so long ago that the South African Ballet Company was on the brink of bankruptcy.
Closing, of course. In South Africa it's quite difficult, but it's actually unfair, because there's this perception that ballet is a Eurocentric art form, and because it's a very niche art form, a lot of people don't understand it. But one could easily say that soccer and all these other things that are being supported in sport, they all don't originate from South Africa, but through exposure and through support systems, people have become familiar with them. And so ballet needs the same approach, because right now I am an African child, but I'm earning a salary because of ballet.
And I think the more people see black ballet dancers, it changes the perception. So you are here, South African, a Thoriso Magongwa, a Soweto-born dancer. But there's also been, in the United States, a huge move, particularly in the East Coast, to create more exposure for black art.
Yes.
And now the principal ballet dancer at the Metropolitan Theatre is a black woman, Misty
Copeland.
And she dances with Brooklyn Mac.
Brooklyn Mac is a friend of mine, actually.
A black American male. And they've started, well, they haven't started, but there's more funding going towards the ballet theatre company in Harlem that's taking black children off the street and training them and setting them up into these dance troupes. So there's something very deliberate that's happening there, which South Africa perhaps could replicate.
I mean, it's South Africa is very complicated, because also there has to be interest, but interest cannot come before knowledge. These kids cannot want to become something they don't know. So we have to work out a system of exposing the industry, creating interest, and then developing the talent. It has to go in that order. And so it is quite tricky, and it needs to be something that is quite systematic, that has to be approached by those that know.
Just give me that chain of command again. So you have to create interest.
We have to create interest. Then we have to attract the talent to the interest, and then develop it.
Okay, and then develop it.
But Lerato, some people actually underplay the importance of exposure, because you don't only do ballet to become a ballet dancer. There's a lot that ballet can teach a person.
The body, the posture.
The poise, learning music, anatomy, understanding of your own body. And later on, you can become an audience. You can become a supportive entity in the ballet industry.
So it's not for want of trying. It's not because there aren't artists in our communities. And it's not because our parents aren't open-minded, but there's some kind of a momentum that gets lost along the way.
Yeah, the problem is also, it's quite exhausting, and you feel like you're fighting a losing battle when you are a Thoriso and you want to start a studio in Mamelodi or whatever, because it is so difficult to get the students in, to get the funding, because at the end of the day, you too have to make a living. And so how do you then make financial profit if you're teaching people who are maybe not able to afford what you're doing, and you also have your own family that you want to support. So a lot of people literally just give up. They just give up. And so that also breaks this thing that people are trying to develop, and that's why I say it needs support and it needs funding. In Europe, we are very fortunate because the state schools are fully funded, and even the private teachers can apply for some kind of stipend or whatever, but they don't really need it because everyone can kind of afford. So hence I'm saying in South Africa, it has to be a systematic and planned situation where, the national lottery or whoever, the powers that be, have to see that market and do something and help.
And I think it's so important to say that because people think, as you said, this is niche, this is elite.
Yeah.
It's far removed from your reality. And coming all the way from Meadowlands, you found yourself learning ballet, eventually going to the National School of the Arts, performing across stages, and now it's Thoriso to the world, from Meadowlands to the world.
From Africa to the world. I always believed that, even when I went to the National School of the Arts, I was one of the first black boys in that first black group to go into these Model C schools, first generation South African. When the apartheid fell apart, I'm that first generation to be exposed to that kind of world with those choices,
The beneficiaries of the revolution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so going to those kind of schools and seeing the possibilities was a trigger for me, and coming from Soweto actually has been the best gift to what I do. It has given me fire, because I'm with people that are born into privilege, and they don't understand the power in fighting and wanting and desire. They are just born into this world. So I've always been able to go very far ahead past my counterparts just because I come from a place that didn't have.
So you took your limitation and you made it work for you.
Absolutely.
And Mandla says Thoriso is one of the best dancers from the National School of the Arts. Congratulations, Thoriso.
Oh,
he
thank
works
you.
hard, and we see him pushing even after class in the 1990s. You would stay on and continue to train and work hard. What does training look like in ballet? Because it's quite rigorous. Ballet is elegant, but it's very physically demanding. You can't stand on those points for 30 minutes unless your back can handle it, and unless your muscles on your calves can handle it. So just tell us about the rigors of training.
I mean, the training is quite intense. A ballet dancer goes to a ballet school for about 8 or 9 years before you can even think of attempting anything professional. And the most important part actually is when you are still around the ages of 8, 9, and 10, because that's when you actually mold the feet. You stretch the hamstrings, you break the hips, you get that body to become as pliable as possible. So that's why it's very important to do it at a young age. What happens is that when you get into your pubescent stage, everything kind of tightens and hardens. But if you've broken it sufficiently down as a child, you kind of skip that period and you're able to sustain and get into the next level. Our training is quite intense. My work day is, I start ballet training at 10 o'clock every morning, and we train for an hour and 15 minutes ballet class. But then I have to warm up an hour before that and get the body ready, stretch it and all of that. But then an hour before that, I do my own cardio and gym routine. So cardio and gym routine, an hour of stretching, and then an hour of actual training and doing the exercises on the bar and in the center. Then after that, it goes into a whole day of rehearsing different ballets and different productions that are about to go onto stage. And then after that, in the evening, from about 7 o'clock, you are on stage and you have a show. And you finish and you go home at about 11 o'clock at night.
So a 15, 16-hour day.
It's like that. And it can get
Monday to Friday.
Monday to Sunday. Sometimes you are, because you want to come and watch the ballet on a Sunday afternoon, don't you? But that means then I have to be at work then. So weekends are a blessing if you have them off. It's not quite frequent, but when they happen, it's like bliss.
Did anybody ever say to you, you're not really the right kind of person to be a dancer?
Absolutely, everybody. You must remember that, black people are a minority in the ballet world. And there's always been a stereotype about the black body. Our feet are built different just because of our, the black body is different from the white body. That's just period. We know that. So our feet are a little bit harder. Our bones are a lot stronger. So we don't have what they call the coup de pied, the ankle of the foot, that does this so beautifully, like mine now.
As you're pointing.
Exactly. And that is a big problem, because then you cannot have those lines created to finish that extension.
Curvatures.
Exactly. Which I started off like that, you know, but over the years I've actually had to break and manipulate my feet to what they are now, and they are better than most now. So thank you.
So anatomy is a huge issue.
It's a huge issue. And also, if you're not flexible, if you're very stiff, that's an issue for you, because, you know, the repertoire demands you to split and lift and, you know, do all of those things. And especially now, today, the ballet dancer is asked to be like close to a gymnast.
And masculinity in ballet?
Oh, that's a huge deal. That is a huge deal. And you can see me, I mean, I appear as I appear. And that is a problem on its own too, because when you are on stage, the ballet world is a very conservative world. Very conservative. It's an old world, an elite world, and very strict. Romeo and Juliet, the swan and the prince. You understand? The stories are always very Disneyland, if I can say.
Yeah.
It is very much
And
like that.
binaries are clear.
And exactly, your roles are very, very clear. And so when you have someone like me who's able to morph into this and that and be the gray area, it creates a problem. But fortunately, I was, you know, coming up in a time where a lot of new choreographers were coming in, people who are interested in creating a new world, a new narrative. And then my body and my look has been such an exciting tool for them. You know, currently even my director right now is creating something purely based on the fact that my body and my look and my aesthetic is very gender fluid.
Now, final question. Who are your role models? Because we can talk about the Mikhail Baryshnikovs, that's what I know, the Rudolf Nureyev, and Nureyev, and then in Soweto was a Kali Dibakwane. So yes, we celebrate you, but there's been people in the craft for quite a while, actually.
Yes. Unfortunately, I couldn't look at those people because they were not doing what I have been wanting to do. I think my dad actually knows Kali Dibakwane. I think I remember him bringing up that name. But, you know, they were doing contemporary dance and they were doing African dance, and I wanted to do classical ballet. So I've had to look to Europe and Russia for my, for my role models. And for the longest time, my biggest icon was Vladimir Malakhov, who's a Ukrainian-born dancer he's just impeccable. And I mean, there's quite a lot, but they're all Ukrainian and Russian, and yeah.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. It's
and
okay.
You are going to be the role model for many in your day. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lord. I really appreciate it.
Thoriso Magongwa there.